player sitting at 9-3, so the loser will be out of the tournament. Michael Majors 22nd on the leaderboard. 3-0 finish needed to make it into the top 8.
Michael Majors is a player who was quietly very good for a very long time. It's impossible you never heard of him when he was top 32ing most Pro Tours, but picked up a lot of Pro points in his day. At the end of last year, won a Grand Prix with that Sphinx's tutelage deck that apparently you've been playing recently.
Trying to. Yeah, Michael Majors actually was on the Pro Tour a lot of the same time that I was playing. You wouldn't know that he was a gold pro for multiple years. A lot of very consistent finishes. And that's actually where the Pro Players Club is concerned, at least it has been. A lot of times consistency can be rewarded. It's not the flashiest thing.
Right.
But it actually is probably a better predictor of overall results than one strong finish. You know, there's a lot of players who have one good tournament and then 2 years later they're off the tour. The players who can stay on the Pro Tour for 3-4 years running, those are the ones that you expect great things of.
Right, and Michael Majors, a select writer for StarCityGames.com. His stuff is consistently excellent. I recommend checking it out.
We are post board in the 4-color rally mirror here between the two players. Silberman not happy with his hand. Doesn't know if he wants to keep or not.
Yeah, in a 4-color deck, it's really hard to have everything you need in your opener. Frequently, you end up keeping a hand that's a little bit off, but you don't always catch when you do.
So for Michael Majors, recently moving to Roanoke, 24-year-old originally from Evans, Georgia. He has 5 Open Series top 8s and an Open win to his name. Now on the SCG leaderboard in 22nd. He is an avid reader, a kayak enthusiast, and he aspires to own an Applebee's in the future. Now, as he would call it, he would open it as Club B's.
Right. You know, I think the franchise rules probably require him to call it just Applebee's. Though a reasonably minded young man, that's a totally reasonable goal. I think if he sets his mind to it, he'll be running that Applebee's franchise in just a couple of years here.
If you're in his presence, you have to call it Club B's, or he won't. He won't
respond.
He won't respond. That's just its name.
I think that's going to run into some trouble with Applebee's corporate.
This might break the branding rules.
Right.
All right. Phil Silberman kept on 6. He'll start with a turn 2 Jace on the play. That can undo a mulligan real quick. This looks like Majors won't be able to answer this. He'll play his own Jace. Now he's got to hope his Jace isn't reflected.
Yeah, Jace advantage is something that Majors really focuses on in any matchup where both players have Jace. If you can be the player with the Jace to get it flipped first, to have it active for more turns, you just accrue a lot more value than your opponent.
So we go back to Silberman. He's going to loot. You see Dispel in his grip. Reflector Mage as well. We'll see if he can cast it. If he has the white mana source for Reflector Mage, I'd have to think that's where he's going.
Yeah, that just seems to be the play here. Did mulligan, see if he has it. And
wow, no land. He had the Reflector Mage but didn't hit the land. And now we'll see if Majors can be the one to make that play.
Right, that's a very unfortunate circumstance to be in if you're Phil.
And it doesn't look like there's too much punishment. Majors, Nantuko Husk, Dispel, Zulaport Cutthroat, Rally the Ancestors, and lands.
Yeah, Majors won't be able to punish him necessarily on this turn. There's a lot of pressure on Phil to find that land on the next turn. With the Jace, he does get 2 cracks at it, though.
So Majors will go for Nantuko Husk. Makes the 3rd land drop. For Silberman, his draw is a Visionary. Still no land. He'll go looking. There we go. It's Windswept Heath. Not only is it land, but it's that untapped white source he may be wanting.
Does have to choose between white and green if he wants to use that mana this turn, and he did just pick up a green spell. So interesting decisions.
Well, he has Canopy Vista available. So
oh, right. He has 2 basics. He can just take the Vista. Right.
So he'll fetch. The discard for the turn was Catacomb Sifter. So quietly, Silberman's loading up his graveyard. You see he discarded a Husk last turn.
I got stuck on Majors, who had to play a basic last turn.
Exactly.
I failed to switch mindsets on Phil's board.
And Silberman, this is interesting. He's in a Visionary and not Reflector Mage here. Not worried about my Majors' Jace.
I think that might be a misstep here because a fetch land and an activation will flip the Jace on Major's side.
So I think here's what he's going for. He either can bounce the Jace or he can leave up Dispel for Collected Company. He cannot do both. So Silberman's going to assess the board that he thinks the Collected Company is more important than the Jace, at least for this turn.
One thing about that, though, is if you counter the Collected Company this turn, the Jace threatens to just cast it again next turn. So unless you have 2 Dispels, this might not work out the best way.
Yeah, then Nantuko Husk is somewhat of a brick wall.
Also, Major's disrespecting this Dispel is a problem.
Well, he'll respect it. He'll play Catacomb Sifter instead, drop a fetch land.
Not an easy turn to navigate, to be sure, though.
Well, here's a play. Majors will just go aggro. He's going to attack with Nantuko Husk. Silberman chump blocks with Elvish Visionary and drains Majors for 1. But the board advantage is going toward Michael Majors. It's going to put pressure on Silberman to resolve cards like Rallies and Collected Companies.
Right, and Majors with a Dispel of his own, and Phil has had the dig for his 3rd land drop, so being able to fight that Dispel war is a pipe dream at this point in the time.
When you're behind on the board like Phil already was from Husk, I don't know how much you want to leave up the Dispel as you need the Reflector Mage to get your board parity back.
Right.
Draws Forest for Silberman. He will loot. Finds a copy of Sidisi's Faithful. That one figures to be good against Husk, at least for the short term.
Yep, it's reasonable. Picking up the Forest was fine here. You'd really prefer a white source, but just another mana to build up towards casting Collected Company and leaving up Dispel is where you want to be.
So here's a discard of Sidisi's Faithful. That will flip the Jace. Jace will plus on Nantuko Husk.
It'll force Majors to sacrifice a creature if he wants to swing the Husk profitably.
Silberman will cast Grim Haruspex, not Reflector Mage. What that means, I guess he wouldn't want to bounce the Jace anyway. He leaves up the Dispel. And Majors, you see here, he loots and then fetches. He wants an extra loot off that Jace.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. He's admitting that his hand isn't quite where he needs it to be right now. And indeed with his Rally deck, he just has a bunch of lands in his graveyard.
So the window for bouncing Jace there was actually closed. Had Phil tried for it, Majors could have done that in the opposite order, flipped the Jace to 5 cards, and a bounce never would have happened.
Right, and the other option of, say, casting Reflector Mage and trying to bounce the Husk doesn't necessarily get you anywhere. It's a bounce that doesn't really matter, and if Majors wants, he can just sacrifice the Husk to get it in the graveyard.
Well, Majors has the advantage on the board. We'll see what he does with it. He's going to loot with Jace. This is going to flip the Jace. We'll see what he wants to discard. A lot of good cards here. Visionary, Rally, Dispel, Cutthroat.
Yeah, and so Majors is making decisions. Does he want to play this game on the board? Does he want to build up to a Rally?
Looks like he's going to play it on the board. He discards the Rally. Now, of course, he can flash that back at a later time if he needs to.
Yeah, so in many ways, discarding the Rally is almost free. Still has access to it.
Yeah, well, he's certainly winning the fair game. I assume now Grim Haruspex may change things here. That card is pretty relevant in the mirrors, from what I know.
It is a problem. Majors does not appear to have any way to get it off the table. Silberman's going to need some more bodies in play to actually start triggering it, but it's a very real card.
Here's Zulaport Cutthroat from Majors. He'll sack the Scion for mana, scry, and drain.
That mana will enable him to cast Visionary and leave up Dispel on this turn.
All right, and that's what he's going to do. Here's Visionary, draw a card. Draws second Dispel. He hasn't used the Jace yet. So now he'll play Canopy Vista, plus the Jace to shrink the Haruspex. And now, does he swing the Husk? That's the question here. Does he want to just keep putting Silberman's creatures in the yard? It means that Husk lives, or Haruspex lives. Yeah, looks like Majors, he's going to go aggressive.
Right, yeah, Silberman gets to draw cards off the Haruspex, say chump with the Zulaport, Cutthroat. You get to draw a card for your troubles, so Majors has multiple bodies that can attack, a Cutthroat of his own. Deems himself to be ahead on board, so he's getting aggressive.
With 2 Dispels in hand, I guess Majors he can push damage long enough, right? So the problem with drawing cards is that Silberman will eventually draw into Rallies and Companies. Now, if Majors can dispel both those, maybe he can actually win on the board here.
Yeah, exactly. If Phil is drawing towards the hallmark cards in the matchup, the Collected Company's Rally the Ancestors, there's a high chance that he tries to cast them, and those turns are massive tempo swings in Major's favor.
Both players will end up taking a damage there. Still, Phil took 2, but then drained for 1. The Cutthroat died, and Phil drew a card. Now we go back to Silberman's turn. He's got an Evolving Wilds, a Jace on 6. 2 cards in hand. He is somewhat low on cards. Now, of course, if he can resolve a rally at any point, Major's graveyard is mostly lands. Silberman's graveyard should win the game.
Yeah, Silberman has some good stuff, a pretty juicy graveyard being built up. Majors, as we've seen by the discarding of his copy of Rally the Ancestors, he's just trying to win the game on the board.
Silberman's side, he might get 2 shots at that rally. He could try it, and then he could try to flash it back with Jace, as long as the Jace is still alive to do it.
Right. Good chance that Majors applies some pressure to the Jace, given that Silberman is still at 18.
Right, and those 2 dispels in Majors' hand will stop both rallies, which means Majors should be able to answer the Jace before any of these rallies resolve.
Right.
Being behind on the board here, and not to mention that Silberman's just found a second white and it's tapped.
Yeah, so can't force any issues just yet, even if you wanted to.
And Tuco Husk will be shrunk to a 0-2.
Standard challenge players, your pairings for round number 3.
And the draw for Michael Majors is Collected Company.
One mana shy of being able to cast Company and leave up double Dispel. A lot to think about in that situation. Of course, Collected Company being an instant means you have time to cast it on Silberman's turn and leave up both the spells in the interim.
We'll see where Majors goes from here.
Presumably trying to figure out exactly what he wants to do this combat.
Here's Grim Haruspex. Cannot leave up double blue. All his blue lands are also black. And now he's going to draw some cards. Here's Elvish Visionary. So drains, scries, and draws. Draws a fetch land. Perfect for Majors.
Right, Polluted Delta, which will be able to find a blue source. That's a big swing.
It's interesting. A lot of times you think about this game being about companies, being about rallies. Majors has been behind on those, but you feel like he's pulling ahead here. The fact that he established board control is getting more and more pronounced.
And this is something about investing a lot of time into a mirror match. Frequently, there are some macro elements that often determine how the way that a mirror plays out. You think about Rally, you think about Collected Company. Michael Majors is optimizing these micro decisions. He's managing the board very well and still leaving up the option to just blow the game wide open with the Collected Company on top of that.
Right, you feel like he doesn't need the Collected Company to win, but if he resolves it, he certainly will.
Right.
Here's the swing. The Haruspex is a 1-2 because of Jace. Majors swinging both Husk and Sifter. The Husk was shrunk by Jace. Looks like damage goes in. It was at Silberman. Now, Husk was a 2-4. It did eat the Elvish Visionary this turn.
Right.
2 dispels up for Majors. Just covering his bases. He knows that rally, if there's a rally to resolve, would end the game.
And I like Majors pressuring Silberman's life total. He knows with one more copy of Cutthroat, this game could be over in very short order.
When you look at Silberman's side, has the option to Reflector Mage, but he pluses on Sifter and passes. He is in on this rally, the Ancestors resolving. Now, what he doesn't know is that Majors has him covered both on the first and second cast of it.
Yeah, and this game is just slipping away from him one way or the other. So it's easy to think that the rally is your only way to stay in. You force him to have it.
How about a third dispel for Michael Majors?
3 of a kind. That's not a bad selection.
His hand is 3 dispels and a company. So a shrink on the Haruspecs, and here comes the team. Not going to swing the 0-3 Sifter. No need for that one.
Yeah, that's a good one to hang back.
Haruspecs hits the graveyard. All right, if we didn't already know that Silberman was all in on Rally, we know it now. He's going to draw, not try for Rally.
I'm probably fairly confident that Majors has at least one Dispel in his hand.
It seems like it. Here's Nantuko Husk from Silberman. It looks like what he wants to do is he wanted to Rally with Dispel up.
Yeah, with the Dispel being cast here, that appears that was the line.
Yeah.
Still a mana short
End
of
step
doing that.
Company for Majors. Silberman dispelled, Majors dispelled back. Here's 2 Sifters for Majors. Tons of creatures.
So I was saying that 1 Cutthroat breaks this game open. 4 more creatures in play.
Yeah, this is a lot of stuff. And that will get the concession from Phil Silberman. So we never get to the fight about Rally. You see at the end there, Michael Majors showing he has 2 more dispels. He has them covered. And for Michael Majors, this is a win. A really intelligent performance there in the mirror for him. It brings him to 10-3 and keeps him in contention for top 8.